My husband told me his family's weekend trip was just a reunion. Then I found out it was his brother's lavish engagement party. I wasn't invited. So I posted a ski selfie from the slopes. Hours later, my phone exploded. Turns out I ruined their perfect night. Noah's phone buzzed at 7:30 in the morning. He grabbed it faster than I'd ever seen him move, even when his boss called during dinner. His thumb swiped across the screen, his eyes scanning whatever message had just arrived. Then he did something that made my coffee taste bitter in my mouth. He deleted it without saying a word. "Everything okay?" I asked, buttering my toast while watching his face in my peripheral vision. "Just Mom," he said, setting the phone face down. "Family's doing a little reunion thing at the lake this weekend. Nothing special." The way he said, "nothing special," made me pause. Noah's family didn't do casual. They planned Christmas dinner 3 months in advance. They sent formal invitations to backyard barbecues. Nothing with the Fletcher family was ever just nothing special. "That sounds nice," I said carefully. "Which lake?" "The usual spot. You know, where we went for Dad's birthday last year." He was already moving toward the coffee maker, his back to me. "Just the old crowd. Golf, boring conversations about the stock market. You'd hate it. Thanks for listening to a story many women live through. If you believe in honesty and family truth, subscribe free to support more women." Now here's how that weekend changed everything. I remembered that weekend at the lake. His father had spent 2 hours explaining municipal bonds to anyone who'd listen. His mother had critiqued every dish at the restaurant. His sister had taken 47 photos of her salad. He wasn't wrong, I had been bored out of my mind. "Well, maybe I could come for part of it," I suggested. "I don't mind the boring stuff if it means spending time with everyone." Noah turned around and for just a second something flickered across his face. Fear? Panic? It was gone so quickly I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. "Babe, honestly, you'd be miserable. Mom's already complaining about the humidity. Dad's bringing those golf clubs he never stops talking about. And you know how Jamie gets when she's had too much wine." He walked over and kissed my forehead. "Besides, didn't you say Dana and Mel were planning something for this weekend?" That was true. Dana had mentioned wanting to go skiing, and Mel had been talking about needing a girls' trip for weeks. I'd been on the fence about it, mostly because I felt guilty leaving Noah alone. But if he was going to be with his family anyway, I guess I could call them, I said. "Perfect. We both get to have fun." He squeezed my shoulder and headed upstairs to get ready for work. I sat there for a moment, staring at his empty coffee cup. Something still felt wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on what. Maybe it was the way he'd grabbed his phone. Maybe it was how quickly he'd offered an alternative when I suggested coming along. Or maybe it was just my imagination fed by 5 years of feeling like an outsider in his family. The truth was, the Fletcher family had never quite accepted me. It wasn't anything dramatic or obvious. No screaming matches or slammed doors. It was subtler than that. Conversations that stopped when I walked into the room. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. Holiday traditions that somehow always happened when I wasn't around. Last Christmas I'd thought things were finally improving. His mother had actually complimented the green bean casserole I'd brought. His father had asked about my job at the marketing firm. Jamie had even shown me photos of her new apartment. It felt like progress, like maybe after 5 years of marriage I was finally becoming part of the family instead of just Noah's wife. But now thinking about it, I realized they'd all been polite. Cordial. Not warm exactly, but not hostile either. It was the kind of interaction you have with acquaintances, not family. The kind of smile you give the neighbor you don't really know but want to keep things pleasant with. I called Dana during my lunch break. "So, about that ski trip," I said when she answered. "Oh my gosh, yes. Mel's been checking the weather obsessively. The snow's supposed to be perfect this weekend." Dana's enthusiasm was infectious. "Are you free? I know you usually do things with Noah on weekends." "He's got a family thing, so I'm all yours." "Excellent. I already looked at lodges. There's this cute place about 3 hours north. Nothing fancy, but it's got a fireplace and they serve amazing hot chocolate." For the first time all day I felt genuinely excited about something. "Book it. I'll bring the snacks." That evening I mentioned the ski trip to Noah while we were making dinner together. He was chopping vegetables for stir-fry and I was marinating the chicken. It was one of our favorite routines, cooking together, talking about our days, planning our weekend. Sounds perfect, he said, but he wasn't looking at me. He was focused intensely on dicing those carrots like it was the most important task in the world. When are you leaving for the lake? I asked. Friday afternoon. Probably drive up after work. He scraped the carrots into the pan. I'll be back Sunday night. Nothing too exciting. Tell your family I said hi. I will. But something in his tone suggested he wouldn't. That night I couldn't sleep. Noah was lying next to me, breathing evenly, but I could tell he wasn't really asleep either. There was a tension in his shoulders, a stiffness that wasn't there on normal nights. I wanted to ask him what was wrong, but I was afraid of the answer. Or maybe I was afraid he'd tell me nothing was wrong and I'd have to pretend to believe him. Instead, I lay there thinking about all the times I'd felt like an outsider in his family. The birthday parties I wasn't invited to. The group text messages I wasn't included in. The way conversations shifted when I joined them, like they were speaking a different language that I wasn't fluent in. I'd always told myself it was just their dynamic. Some families were close-knit in ways that made newcomers feel excluded, even when they didn't mean to. Noah loved me and that was what mattered. His family would come around eventually. But lying there in the dark, I couldn't shake the feeling that eventually might never come. The next morning, Noah was already gone when I woke up. He'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Early meeting. Have fun skiing. Love you. I stared at that note for a long time. Love you. Not I love you. Just love you. It was a small thing, maybe meaningless. But it felt like another piece of evidence in a case I didn't want to build. I packed my ski gear and tried to push the doubts away. Maybe I was overthinking everything. Maybe the weird feeling in my stomach was just anxiety about the weekend apart. We didn't spend many weekends separately, and perhaps that was making me paranoid. Before leaving for the mountains, I decided to slip a little note into Noah's suitcase. Something sweet, something that would remind him of us while he was away. I found a pink sticky note and drew a small heart on it, adding "missing you already" in my best handwriting. I tucked it into the side pocket of his overnight bag, right next to his phone charger where I knew he'd find it. It was a small gesture, but it felt important. Like I was staking a claim, reminding him that I existed, that I mattered. Looking back, I realize how desperate that little heart was. How much hope I'd pinned on such a tiny thing. I had no idea that by Sunday night, everything would be different. That the man I'd trusted with my whole heart had been lying to me in ways I couldn't even imagine. But in that moment, tucking that note into his bag, I still believed in us. I still believed that love was enough, that trust was warranted, that the strange ache in my gut was just wedding jitters that had lasted 5 years too long. I had no idea how little I mattered to him, or to them. The ski lodge smelled like pine and cinnamon, with a hint of wood smoke from the massive stone fireplace. Dana and Mel had claimed a corner table near the window, and I was curled up in an oversized armchair, warming my hands around a mug of hot cocoa topped with whipped cream and tiny marshmallows. The mountain air had been crisp and perfect all morning, and my cheeks were still pink from the cold. You should post that picture I took of you on the summit, Dana said, scrolling through her phone. The lighting was incredible. I pulled out my phone, still smiling from our morning run down the intermediate slopes. My Instagram was usually pretty quiet, mostly photos of coffee, sunsets, and the occasional dinner Noah and I made together. But the photo Dana had captured was genuinely beautiful. Me standing against the backdrop of snow-covered peaks, my ski jacket bright against the white landscape, sunlight catching in my hair. I opened the app and started typing a caption about fresh powder and mountain therapy. That's when I saw it. The notification showed a tagged photo from Noah's Aunt Carol, someone I'd exchanged pleasantries with at family gatherings but never really knew well. Her profile picture was tiny, but I could make out what looked like a fancy venue behind her. The caption preview read, "So proud of my youngest's engagement." My finger hovered over the notification. Youngest engagement? Noah's family only had 2 sons, him and his brother Marcus. Marcus was the younger one, but he'd been dating his girlfriend Sarah for 3 years without any mention of marriage. At least not that I'd heard. I tapped the photo. The image filled my screen and everything inside me went cold. It was Carol, beaming in a burgundy dress, standing under an elaborate crystal chandelier. Behind her, I could see round tables with cream-colored linens, floral centerpieces, and what looked like a small dance floor. This wasn't a family reunion at the lake. This was a party. An elegant, expensive party. I read the full caption, "So proud of my youngest nephew's engagement." Marcus and Sarah, you're perfect together. What a magical evening celebrating love. My hands started trembling. I zoomed in on the background looking for familiar faces. There, at a table near the dance floor, was Noah's mother. She was wearing the navy blue dress I'd helped her pick out for her anniversary last year. She was laughing, raising a champagne flute in what looked like a toast. I scrolled to the tagged accounts. Marcus was tagged. Sarah was tagged. And there, in the corner of the photo, barely visible but unmistakably there, was Noah. My Noah. In a black tuxedo I'd never seen before. His hair was perfectly styled, not the casual weekend look he'd left home with. He was embracing Marcus, both of them grinning like they'd just won the lottery. Next to them, Sarah was wiping tears from her eyes, her left hand extended to show off what looked like a substantial diamond ring. "Everything okay?" Mel asked, glancing over from her own phone. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I couldn't answer. I was too busy scrolling through the tagged accounts, finding more photos, more evidence of the lie I'd been living. Noah's sister Jamie had posted a carousel of images from the party. The first showed her and Sarah embracing, both in elegant dresses. The second was a group shot of the entire family, everyone dressed to the nines, champagne glasses in hand. The third was Noah giving a speech at what looked like a microphone stand, his hand gesturing toward Marcus and Sarah. My husband was giving a speech at his brother's engagement party. An engagement party I knew nothing about. An engagement party I hadn't been invited to. I kept scrolling, my breath coming in short gasps. There were photos of the dinner. Multiple courses on fine china, wine glasses glinting in the candlelight. Pictures of Noah's father presenting Sarah with what looked like a family heirloom necklace. Videos of Marcus getting down on one knee in front of the entire family while everyone cheered. Every single person I'd shared holidays with, exchanged gifts with, made small talk with at countless family gatherings, they were all there. All celebrating. All included. All part of something I'd been deliberately excluded from. I found a video on Jamie's story that showed the moment of the proposal. Marcus had clearly planned it as part of the party, getting down on one knee while someone played piano in the background. The family was gathered in a circle around the couple, and I could see Noah clapping enthusiastically, his face bright with genuine joy. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it over the chatter in the lodge. I called Noah without thinking, my finger hitting his contact before I could stop myself. It rang once. Twice. 3 times. Then voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Noah. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." I hung up without saying anything. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I waited 30 seconds and called again. Voicemail. Then my phone buzzed with a text from him. "Can't talk." That was it. 2 words. Not, "I'll call you back." Not, "At dinner, we'll call later." Just, "Can't talk." Like I was some telemarketer interrupting his evening. I stared at those 2 words until they blurred together. "Can't talk." To his wife. On the night his brother got engaged. At a party he'd lied about, at an event he'd deliberately excluded me from. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "I need some air," I mumbled to Dana and Mel. "Want company?" Dana asked, concern creeping into her voice. "No, I need a minute." I walked to the lodge's bathroom, my legs feeling unsteady. The mirror above the sink reflected a face I barely recognized. My cheeks were still pink from the cold, but my eyes looked hollow, shocked. I gripped the edge of the sink and stared at my reflection. Was I invisible to him? The question came from somewhere deep, somewhere I'd been trying not to look for 5 years. All those family gatherings where I felt like a stranger. All those inside jokes I wasn't part of. All those times I'd convinced myself I was being oversensitive, that I was imagining the distance, the exclusion. But this wasn't my imagination. This was real. This was a family choosing to celebrate one of their most important moments without me. This was my husband lying to my face, choosing them over me, choosing their comfort over my feelings. The tears came then, but not the way I expected. No dramatic sobs or angry outbursts. Just a quiet, steady stream that felt like something breaking inside me. I wiped them away with rough paper towels, but they kept coming. I thought about the little heart I'd tucked into his suitcase. Had he even found it? Had he read my note about missing him while he was buttoning his tuxedo, preparing for a party he'd never intended to tell me about? My phone buzzed again. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Maybe it was Noah calling back, ready to explain, ready to apologize. It was a notification from Instagram. Jamie had posted a new photo. The family gathered around a piano, singing something together. Noah was there, his arm around his mother's shoulders, his face bright with happiness I rarely saw at home. I closed the app and splashed cold water on my face. When I looked up, the woman in the mirror looked different. Not just hurt but angry. Not just excluded but betrayed. I walked back to Dana and Mel, who were pretending to be absorbed in their phones but clearly worried about me. Change of plans, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I want to ski until they close the slopes. I want to ski until I'm so tired I can't think about anything else. Because thinking about this, about what it meant, about what came next, was too much to handle in a cozy lodge with hot cocoa and concerned friends. I needed the mountain. I needed the speed and the cold and the pure physical demand of staying upright while the world tried to knock me down. I needed to keep moving because if I stopped I might fall apart completely. The next morning came too early. I'd skied until my legs burned and my lungs ached, but sleep had been elusive. Every time I closed my eyes I saw those Instagram photos. Noah's genuine smile at his brother's party, the family gathered in celebration, the empty space where I should have been. Dana knocked on my door at 7:30 with coffee and determination. Come on, sunshine. Fresh powder and clear skies. The mountain's calling. I pulled on my ski jacket, grateful for friends who knew when to push and when to let things be. The morning air was sharp and clean, cutting through the fog in my head. We took the lift to the highest peak, and for the first time since opening that Instagram post I felt something close to peace. At the summit, the world spread out below us in endless white. The sun was brilliant against the snow, making everything sparkle like scattered diamonds. Other skiers dotted the slopes like colorful specks, but up here it felt like we had the mountain to ourselves. This is incredible, Dana said, pulling out her phone. The light is perfect. Let me get a picture of you. I almost said no. The last thing I wanted was to pose for photos when my marriage was imploding 3 hours away. But something about the vastness of the mountains, the way the sunlight felt warm on my face despite the cold air, made me nod. Okay, but make it quick. I want to get down before the crowds hit. Dana positioned me with my back to the valley, the endless peaks stretching behind me. Look at me, she said. Now turn your face to the sun. Perfect. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the warmth wash over my eyelids. The world felt suspended up here, quiet except for the distant sound of wind through the trees below. When I opened my eyes, Dana was already showing me the result. The photo was beautiful in a way that surprised me. My cheeks were flushed from the cold, my hair catching the light where it escaped from my hat. But it was my expression that caught me off guard. I looked peaceful, genuinely content. The worry lines that had been etched around my eyes for months were smoothed away by the mountain air and sunshine. Send it to me, I said. I want to post it. Back at the lodge an hour later, I sat with my phone and that photo trying to find words that matched how I felt. The betrayal was still there, still sharp, but it was mixed with something else now. A clarity I hadn't felt in years. I typed and deleted half a dozen captions. Mountain therapy. Too generic. Finding peace in high places. Too vague. Sometimes you have to climb high to see clearly. Too philosophical. Then I looked at the photo again, my face turned toward the sun, completely present in that moment, and the words came without effort. Turns out the mountains were more welcoming than some families. I hit post before I could second-guess myself. The response was immediate. Dana, who was sitting across from me, looked up from her own phone with raised eyebrows. Okay, that's bold, she said. I respect it. Mel leaned over to read the caption and whistled low. Girl, you just declared war. But it didn't feel like war. It felt like truth. Simple, clean truth after months of pretending everything was fine. My phone started buzzing within minutes. First came the likes. Friends from work, college buddies, neighbors who knew me well enough to read between the lines. Then came the comments. My coworker Jessica. You okay, hon? My neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez. Mountains never judge. Sending love. My college roommate. Spill the tea when you're ready. But then the notifications shifted. A direct message from Jamie, Noah's sister, appeared at the top of my screen. I opened it without thinking. What the hell is your problem? I stared at those words for a long moment. What was my problem? Let me count the ways. Before I could respond, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Noah's mother's contact photo, a formal headshot from her real estate business cards. I watched it ring, my thumb hovering over the answer button. On the fourth ring I sent it to voicemail. 30 seconds later she called again. This time I turned the phone face down and let it vibrate against the wooden table. "You don't have to answer," Dana said quietly. "Whatever's happening, you get to choose how to handle it." My phone buzzed with a text from Noah. "You just had to make a scene." I read it 3 times before the absurdity hit me. I started laughing. Not the gentle chuckle of someone who found something amusing, but the sharp, bitter laugh of someone who'd finally seen the whole picture. "A scene," I said out loud, showing Dana the message. "A selfie is a scene? What's he talking about?" Dana asked. I realized I hadn't told them everything. Noah lied to me about this weekend. He said it was a casual family reunion. Turns out it was his brother's engagement party. A formal engagement party that I wasn't invited to. Mel's mouth fell open. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. I found out last night through Instagram. While I'm up here freezing my butt off thinking he's playing golf with his dad, he's in a tuxedo giving speeches at his brother's engagement." "That's horrible," Dana said. "No wonder you posted that caption." My phone was buzzing constantly now. More messages, more missed calls. I opened Instagram to see that my post had been shared by several people, including my cousin Rebecca, who lived in Noah's hometown. The comments were multiplying. Then Dana showed me something that made my breath catch. "Look at this," she said, holding up her phone. "Someone posted a video on their story and tagged you." It was a shaky video clearly taken at the engagement party. I could see Noah being pulled aside by his father near what looked like a coat check area. His face was tight, stressed in a way I'd rarely seen. In the background I could see Sarah, the new fiancée, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue while Marcus rubbed her shoulder. "Turn up the volume," I said. The audio was muffled but I could make out fragments. "Your wife. Inappropriate timing. Family matters." The video was only 15 seconds long, but it told a complete story. My simple caption had somehow reached the party, had disrupted their perfect evening, had forced them to acknowledge my existence even in my absence. Another notification popped up, this time from Noah's Aunt Carol, the same woman whose post had revealed the lie in the first place. She'd commented on my photo. "Sometimes people show their true colors when they think no one's watching." I screenshot that comment before she could delete it. More texts were rolling in from Noah. "This is embarrassing. People are asking questions. Can you please just delete it?" Delete it. Like deleting a photo would delete the truth of what he'd done. Like pretending I didn't exist for his family's convenience was somehow more acceptable than acknowledging I existed for my own. "You know what?" I said to Dana and Mel. "I don't think I will delete it." In fact, I did the opposite. I opened the photo again and added a location tag. Summit Peak, where the air is clear and the view is honest. My phone erupted with notifications. But for the first time since discovering Noah's lies, I felt something other than hurt. I felt powerful. I felt visible. The mountains had welcomed me with open arms, bright sunshine and crystal clear air. My husband's family had welcomed me with lies, exclusion and demands for silence. I knew which one felt more like home. The drive home from the mountains felt like descending from another world. With every mile that brought me closer to our house, the clarity I'd found on the summit began to feel fragile, threatened by the weight of what waited for me. Dana and Mel had offered to come with me to stand beside me when I faced Noah, but this was something I needed to do alone. I pulled into our driveway at 4:30 Sunday afternoon, 2 hours earlier than I'd originally planned. Noah's car was already there, which surprised me. He'd said he wouldn't be back until evening, but apparently his family weekend had ended abruptly. I sat in my car for a moment staring at our front door. The house looked the same as always. The small potted plants I'd arranged on the porch steps, the welcome mat I'd bought last spring, the wind chimes that caught the afternoon light. Everything exactly as I'd left it, but somehow completely different now. My phone buzzed one more time. Another message from Noah. "We need to talk when you get home." I turned off the engine and grabbed my ski bag from the trunk. The sound of my key in the lock felt foreign, like I was entering someone else's home. Noah was standing in the kitchen and the sight of him stopped me cold. He was still wearing dress pants and a button-down shirt, Not the casual clothes he'd claimed he'd need for golf and lake lounging. His hair was still styled with the kind of precision that suggested a recent barbershop visit, not a weekend with family. But it was his posture that told the real story. Arms crossed, shoulders rigid, jaw set in that way that meant he'd been rehearsing what to say. He looked defensive before I'd even spoken a word. "You made everything worse," he said before my suitcase even touched the floor. I stood there, my hand still on the handle of my bag, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not, "How was your trip?" Not, "I'm sorry you found out that way." Not even, "We need to talk about what happened." Just blame. Immediate, unapologetic blame. Worse than what? I asked, setting my bag down slowly. Worse than lying to me? Worse than excluding me from your brother's engagement? Worse than letting me find out through Instagram that my husband has been living a double life? He uncrossed his arms and ran a hand through his hair, disturbing that perfect styling. "You don't understand how complicated this is." "Then explain it to me." I leaned against the doorframe, suddenly exhausted. "Explain to me why your brother's engagement was something I couldn't know about. Explain to me why you needed to lie about where you were going." "It's not that simple." "It seems pretty simple to me. Your family was celebrating something important and you chose not to include me. So I have one question for you, Noah." I looked directly at him, watching his face. "Why didn't you want me there?" He flinched like I'd struck him. His eyes darted away from mine, focusing on something over my shoulder. The silence stretched between us, heavy and telling. "Mom wasn't comfortable with the idea," he finally said. "Your mother wasn't comfortable with me at your brother's engagement party. She thought. She was worried you might not fit the vibe they were going for. You know how formal these things can get. She was stressed about everything being perfect." I felt something crystallize inside me, sharp and cutting. "What vibe was that exactly?" "The vibe where your wife exists." "That's not fair." "Fair." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to talk about fair? You think it was fair to let me pack your suitcase, to slip a love note into your bag, while you knew you were going to a party I wasn't invited to? You think it was fair to let me plan a weekend away so I wouldn't accidentally discover your lie?" His face went pale. "You went through my stuff?" "I didn't go through anything. I put a note in your bag because I thought my husband would miss me while he was away. Clearly, I was wrong about that." Noah's shoulders sagged slightly. "Look, I found the note. It was sweet. But you have to understand." "No," I interrupted. "I don't have to understand anything. But I do understand now. I understand that your family thinks I don't fit the vibe. I understand that your mother isn't comfortable with my existence at family celebrations. What I want to know is what you think." "What do you mean? Did you fight for me, Noah? When your mother said she didn't want me there, when your family decided I wasn't worth including, did you stand up for me? Did you tell them that excluding your wife was unacceptable?" The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. He opened his mouth, closed it, then looked down at his hands. "It's complicated. You don't know how my family operates. They have their ways of doing things, and if I push too hard..." "If you push too hard, what? They'll what, disown you? Stop loving you? Or would they just be mildly inconvenienced by having to pretend to like me for one evening?" "That's not how it is." "Then how is it?" "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you value their comfort more than my dignity. It looks like you'd rather lie to me than deal with their disapproval." I walked past him to the stairs, my legs feeling unsteady. Everything in our house looked different now. The photos of us on the mantel, the coffee cups we'd left in the sink Friday morning, the throw pillows I'd arranged on the couch. All of it felt like props in a play I hadn't realized I was performing in. "Where are you going?" Noah called after me. "To pack. You don't have to do this. We can work through this." I paused on the third stair, my hand gripping the banister. "Can we? Because it seems like the only way we can work through this is if I pretend it didn't happen. If I go back to accepting that I'm not really part of your family, that I'm just someone you're married to." "That's not true." I turned to look at him. "Isn't it? When was the last time you chose me over them? When was the last time you put my feelings first when they conflicted with what your family wanted?" He didn't answer, and I didn't wait for him to find the words. In our bedroom, I pulled my old suitcase from the closet, the same one I'd moved in with 5 years ago. I packed methodically, taking only what was truly mine. Clothes, books, the jewelry my grandmother had left me. I left behind everything we'd bought together, everything that belonged to the couple we'd been. Noah appeared in the doorway but didn't come in. He watched me fold my sweaters, roll my jeans, pack my shoes into careful compartments. "The note," he said quietly. I looked up. "What about it?" "I did see it. I carried it with me all weekend." I found the pink sticky note on his nightstand, slightly crumpled now. The little heart I'd drawn looked childish, naive. The words "missing you already" felt like they'd been written by someone else. I picked it up and smoothed it out, then placed it carefully on his pillow. This time it wasn't a token of love. It was evidence of who I'd been before I learned the truth. 20 minutes later, I was standing by the front door with my suitcase, calling Mel. "I need that couch you offered," I said when she answered. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. Noah sat on the bottom step, his head in his hands. "I never meant for it to happen this way." "I know," I said, and I meant it. "But that's the problem. You never meant for me to find out at all." When Mel's headlights swept across our driveway, I picked up my suitcase and walked toward the door I'd walked through as Noah's wife for the last time. Mel's couch was surprisingly comfortable for what became my temporary sanctuary. Her apartment was small but filled with warm light, plants in every corner, and the kind of organized chaos that spoke of a life fully lived. I'd been there 3 days when my phone buzzed with a notification that made me sit up straight. My cousin Rebecca had reshared my mountain photo with a fire emoji and her own caption, "Some truths burn brighter than lies." Proud of my girl. Rebecca lived in Noah's hometown, moved in the same social circles as his family. Her res hair wasn't just support, it was a public statement. Within an hour, the photo had been shared 6 more times. People I barely knew were commenting, liking, adding their own fire emojis and heart eyes reactions. The simple image of me on that mountaintop was traveling through social networks I hadn't even realized existed. That's when things got interesting. Tuesday morning, I was making coffee in Mel's kitchen when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something made me answer. "Is this Avery Fletcher?" The voice was professional, cautious. "Yes, this is Avery. This is Jennifer Walsh from Walsh & Associates. We handle marketing for several local businesses. I'm calling because, well, this is a bit unusual, but one of our clients mentioned some social media activity that's been affecting their business relationships." I set down my coffee mug. "I'm sorry, I'm not following. Your husband Noah Fletcher does contract work for several of our clients. One of them, Brightside Financial, mentioned that there's been some negative attention surrounding domestic issues that's making them uncomfortable continuing the relationship." My stomach dropped. "Are you calling to ask me to take down my social media posts?" "No, actually. I'm calling because we've had 3 other companies reach out asking who you are. Apparently, your story is resonating with people, and they want to know if you're available for marketing consultation. Authenticity sells, and you've got something a lot of brands are looking for." I hung up feeling dizzy. My Instagram post was affecting Noah's business? And somehow creating opportunities for me? By Thursday, the picture became clearer. Noah sent me a text that was longer than any message he'd sent since I left. "Thanks to your little stunt, I lost the Brightside account. Tom Morrison said his wife saw your post and it raised questions about my character and judgment. This is affecting my livelihood. I hope you're happy." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Your choices. Not mine." It was true. I hadn't asked him to lie. I hadn't forced him to exclude me. I hadn't made him choose his family's comfort over his wife's dignity. I'd simply told the truth about mountains being more welcoming than some families. If that truth was inconvenient for him, maybe he should have considered that before creating the situation. The fallout continued in ways I hadn't anticipated. Jamie unfollowed me on all social media platforms. His mother blocked me entirely. But for every Fletcher family member who cut me off, 2 new people reached out. The messages started trickling in on Wednesday and became a flood by the weekend. Women I'd never met were sliding into my DMs with their own stories. Sarah from Michigan, "I've been excluded from my husband's family events for 8 years. Seeing your post made me realize I'm not crazy." Jennifer from Ohio, "Thank you for speaking up. I thought I was the only one living this nightmare." Lisa from right here in town, "Girl, I know exactly which family you're talking about. You're better off without them." That last message made me laugh out loud. Small towns really did keep no secrets. But the message that broke my heart came from someone unexpected. Noah's cousin Emily, the one who'd always been kind to me at family gatherings. I'm so sorry this happened to you. We weren't told about the engagement party either until the last minute, and when I asked about you, Aunt Patricia said, family only. I should have said something. I should have stood up for you. I'm ashamed that I didn't. I called Emily that night. We talked for 2 hours. She told me things I'd suspected but never had confirmed. How his mother orchestrated family events specifically to exclude me, how she'd poisoned conversations about me for years, how Noah had become increasingly passive in defending me. The worst part, Emily said, is that he let it happen. Marcus told me Noah never even argued when Mom said she didn't want you there. He just nodded and said it would be easier that way. Easier. My marriage had been reduced to what was easier for everyone else. But while Noah's world was getting smaller and more complicated, mine was expanding in unexpected ways. I started going to yoga classes with Mel. The instructor, a woman in her 60s named Grace, had the kind of wisdom that comes from surviving your own storms. After class one day she pulled me aside. I don't know your story, she said, but I can see you're rebuilding something. That takes courage. I joined Mel and her friends for dinner twice that week. Real dinners with conversation and laughter, not the quiet, careful meals Noah and I had shared for months. I took my 8-year-old niece Emma to the movies on Saturday, and when she asked why Uncle Noah wasn't with us, I told her sometimes grown-ups need space to figure things out. She accepted this with the easy wisdom of children and proceeded to make me laugh so hard during the movie that I snorted Diet Coke through my nose. Emma thought this was the funniest thing that had ever happened. We both dissolved into the kind of giggles that made other moviegoers shush us, which only made us laugh harder. Life without Noah wasn't lonely. It was quiet, yes, but it was the kind of quiet that comes from not constantly monitoring your words, not walking on eggshells, not wondering if your presence was welcome in your own marriage. Through it all, that photo stayed on my Instagram. I could have deleted it. Part of me wanted to, especially when I learned about Noah's lost business. But every time I considered it, I remembered that moment on the mountain. The sunlight on my face, the peace in my expression, the truth in my words. The photo had become something bigger than I'd intended. It wasn't revenge, though I understood why some people saw it that way. It wasn't a declaration of war, though the Fletcher family clearly felt attacked by it. It was simply evidence. Proof that when people try to erase you, you don't have to cooperate with your own disappearance. Sunday night, exactly 1 week after Noah's lies exploded in our kitchen, I sat on Mel's balcony with a cup of tea and scrolled through the comments on my post one more time. Hundreds of them now, from women sharing their own stories, offering support, thanking me for speaking a truth they'd been afraid to voice. I hadn't planned any of this. I'd just taken a photo and told the truth about feeling more welcome on a mountain than in my own marriage. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to pretend that wrong things are right. That photo was still there, unedited and unapologetic. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone, but because some truths deserve to stay visible. Some stories need to be told. And sometimes, the people who demand your silence are the ones who most need to hear your voice. The knock came on a Tuesday evening exactly 1 month after I'd walked out of our house. I was sitting at Mel's kitchen table working on a freelance marketing proposal, one of 3 that had come my way since that phone call from Jennifer Walsh. My laptop was open, steam rising from my tea, and I was finally feeling like I could see a path forward. Then I heard his voice in the hallway outside the apartment. Mel? Is Avery there? I know she's staying with you. I froze, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Through the thin door, I could hear Mel's response, firm but not unkind. Noah, you can't just show up here. I need to talk to her. Please. Just 5 minutes. I closed my laptop and walked to the door, pressing my ear against it. His voice sounded different, rougher, like he hadn't been sleeping well. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for him. A bigger part of me remembered sitting in that kitchen while he blamed me for telling the truth about my own exclusion. Avery, he called out, apparently knowing I was listening. Please. I know you're angry, but we can work through this. We can figure it out. I opened the door just wide enough to see him. He was standing in the hallway, and the sight of him was both familiar and foreign. Same dark hair, same brown eyes, but he looked smaller somehow. Defeated. His arms were crossed in that defensive posture I'd come to know so well, and his face wore an expression I recognized. The same practiced sorrow he'd shown when his grandfather died, when his boss had criticized his work, when life didn't go according to his plan. Can we talk? he asked, his voice softer now that he could see me. I looked at him for a long moment, this man I'd shared a bed with for 5 years, whose coffee preferences I knew by heart, who used to make me laugh until my sides hurt. But that person felt like a stranger now, someone I'd created in my imagination to fill the space where a real partner should have been. No, I said simply. His face crumpled slightly. Avery, please. I know I messed up. I know I handled things wrong. But this doesn't have to be the end of everything. It already is the end of everything. I kept my voice steady, surprised by how calm I felt. You made that decision when you chose to lie to me. When you chose them over me. When you let me pack your bag with love notes while you planned to attend a party I wasn't invited to. I can change. We can go to counseling. I'll talk to my family. Noah. I interrupted gently. You had 5 years to talk to your family. You had 5 years to choose me. You didn't. And now you want to fix it because there are consequences you don't like. He started to say something else, but I stepped back and closed the door. Not with anger, not with dramatic flair. Just closed it the way you close a book when you've reached the end of the story. I heard him stand there for another minute before his footsteps retreated down the hallway. Mel appeared beside me, her expression worried. You okay? Yeah, I said and meant it. I really am. 3 days later, an email appeared in my inbox from Patricia Fletcher, Noah's mother. The subject line read, apology, and for a moment my heart did something complicated. Maybe she'd realized how deeply she'd hurt me. Maybe she wanted to make things right. I opened it. Dear Avery, we didn't mean to hurt you. We just didn't think it would matter since you never seemed that interested in family events anyway. I hope you can understand that planning these things is stressful and we wanted Marcus's night to be perfect. I hope you're doing well. Sincerely, Patricia Fletcher. I read it 3 times, each time feeling something different. First hurt, then anger, then something approaching amusement. 27 words that managed to apologize while simultaneously blaming me for my own exclusion. I never seemed interested in family events. I had attended every birthday, holiday, and celebration I'd been invited to for 5 years. I'd brought gifts, contributed to potlucks, smiled through conversations that made me feel invisible. But the line that stuck with me was the most telling. We just didn't think it would matter. They didn't think it would matter that I found out my brother-in-law was engaged. They didn't think it would matter that my husband lied to me. They didn't think it would matter that they deliberately excluded me from a family celebration. They didn't think I would matter. I didn't reply to the email. Not because I was angry, but because I finally understood that it truly didn't matter anymore. Their opinion of me, their approval or disapproval, their comfort or discomfort, none of it had any power over my life unless I gave it that power. Instead, I did something I'd started doing every night since leaving Noah. I opened my journal and wrote down the signs I'd ignored, the red flags I'd explained away, the moments when I'd chosen to believe his words instead of trusting my instincts. The way he'd grab his phone when it buzzed like he was afraid of what I might see. The family photos posted on social media that somehow never included me even when I'd been at the same event. The conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. The way he'd say, my family thinks, as if his thoughts and theirs were interchangeable. The gradual erosion of my confidence, so subtle I hadn't noticed until I was standing on a mountain remembering what it felt like to breathe freely. Writing it down made it real, made it undeniable. This wasn't a marriage that had suddenly gone wrong. This was a relationship that had been slowly poisoning me for years, so gradually that I'd adapted to the toxicity without realizing it was killing me. 2 weeks later, I made a decision that surprised even me. I booked a weekend trip back to the mountains. The same resort, the same trails, the same summit where everything had become clear. This time I went alone. The drive up was different without Dana and Mel's chatter filling the car. Quieter, more contemplative. I checked into the same lodge, walked past the same fireplace where I'd discovered Noah's lies, and felt nothing but gratitude for that moment of painful clarity. Saturday morning I took the lift to the summit alone. The mountain was crowded with weekend skiers, families and couples enjoying the fresh snow that had fallen during the week. But when I reached the top, I found a quiet spot away from the main trails and just stood there. The view was exactly the same, endless peaks stretching to the horizon, valleys filled with snow-covered trees, sky so blue it looked artificial. But I was completely different. The woman who had stood here a month ago had been hurt, angry, shocked by betrayal. The woman standing here now was something else entirely. I opened my arms to the sky and felt the sun on my face, the cold air in my lungs, the solid ground beneath my feet. "I forgive you," I whispered, and I meant it. Not because Noah deserved forgiveness, but because carrying anger was like carrying stones in my backpack. It only slowed me down. "But I release you," I added, and those words felt like wings unfurling. I didn't take a photo this time. I didn't need to document this moment or share it with anyone. This was just for me, the woman who had walked away from erasure and found herself on a mountaintop, arms open to a future that belonged entirely to her. My story didn't end in heartbreak, though it had certainly passed through that territory. It ended in something better: strength, clarity, and the bone-deep knowledge that I was no longer the outsider looking in. I was the woman who had walked into her own light and found it warm enough to live in forever. If this story of unexpected consequences had you feeling every emotion, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when she posted that simple mountain selfie with one honest sentence and watched it shake their perfect party from miles away. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more powerful stories of women finding their strength. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.